Last week, there was a moment when the Australian Navy was operating in the seas that are controlled by Japan. China hates Japan, and the Chinese Navy decided to fire a sonar at Australian divers that were trying to get rid of a fishing net that had got around the propellers of one of our ships, HMAS Toowoomba. Now, this happened on Tuesday, so okay, maybe we're not going to know about it in real time. Did we know about it on Wednesday of last week? Thursday of last week? Friday of last week? Saturday of last week? Well, of course, the answer would be tumbleweeds, right? Nothing, 4/5, bugger all. Nothing to be seen, nothing to be heard. And what was happening while we were kept in the dark about an Australian diver being injured because of this weapon of war being fired by China at the Australian vessel, because the divers were underneath it, not to invade China, but to get rid of a fishing net off the back of a propeller. Well, of course, we didn't hear anything about it because the Prime Minister was playing footsies with the bully of the world, that is President Xi. Of course, this was the second time that they met in less than a month. Oh, g'day, mate, how are you? Oh, buddy, look, I know you've just fired something at Australian sailors, but, mate, can we just turn around for a quick photo? I've got 1.2 million people who used to vote Liberal and they kind of voted for us last time. If I keep having photos with you, will you make sure you take care of me on the WeChat? That's the reality. And as Johannes Leek quite correctly pointed out today, that one of the judgment calls that our Prime Minister made here, and part of the new recasting the relationship with China, is you don't dare disrupt China, no matter what they do, including injuring a member of our own defence force. I suppose you want to talk about that naval incident, says Xi. Shh, you'll spoil the perfect moment, says Albo. Still carrying his Treaty and Truth T-shirt, by the way. Now, amazingly, we did finally find out that this took place, but only after the Prime Minister had left his buddy's side and was on his way back to Australia after APEC, which was, of course, in San Francisco. Richard Miles, in between the taxpayer-funded flight to the Australians-India World Cup cricket match, he told us via Twitter, and Twitter alone, the Australian government has expressed its serious concerns to the Chinese government following an unsafe and unprofessional interaction with the People's Liberation Army Navy destroyer, etc., etc., etc. Now, we learnt about this a couple of days ago. We learned about it on the 18th, so we learned about it on Saturday. It happened on Tuesday. But we didn't hear about it on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday or Friday, because that would have embarrassed the Prime Minister and it would have forced him to have to say something nasty to his new mate. Now, remember, the relationship when it comes to Australia and China is completely about how we put up with the bullying of China. In the past, when Australian leaders have tried to stand up to China, well, of course, cut off by WeChat. Messages sent to the diaspora to vote a different way. Economic coercion. Also, they can send a message to countries like Canada, New Zealand, Germany, and plenty of others, which was let us do whatever we want to you, but never push back, because the second you push back, we'll take away some of the dollars. And all those people who donate to the political parties or the rich and powerful people that a Prime Minister likes to hang out with at the front end of the plane, if he ever actually gets onto a commercial jet, but you know what I mean. Well, of course, they're all happy to make plenty of money out of China. The delay in the timing of knowing what had happened here, for the obvious reason of making sure the Prime Minister didn't have to bring it up with the head of China, is something noticed by a few today.
It's possibly just a coincidence that the government waited until Saturday morning after the Prime Minister had done his press conference in APEC and after he'd boarded his plane back home to Australia that they decided to publicly release this information online. It's up for them to explain, but the most important thing is the Prime Minister did know while he was in San Francisco. So did he raise it with Xi Jinping or did he not?
I have my doubts that he bothered to raise it at all. That's the other issue. But seriously, you can't sit there and pretend you're going to be nice on trade while this is going on with our own Navy people. Tell Australians what's going on. Keeping this in the dark is not helpful.
So after people started to notice this, and even when Jackie Lambie is actually having a go at you, even though she'll obviously go on and vote for everything Labor wants to do, that's the way she works, you see, because she likes the CFMEU support when it comes to the poll workers, and she also doesn't mind the preferences when it comes to Labor. But she's out there saying she's really annoyed about it. It meant that the Prime Minister was on the phone today to say, quick, get me a camera, let's sit down, let's have a chat. He did so with my mate Kieran Gilbert, where he said this.
You're copping a fair bit of flack over it, accusations you didn't raise it with the Chinese leadership in San Francisco. Can you clear that up?
Well, we've raised it very clearly through all of the normal channels. But I can assure you that we raised these issues in the appropriate way.
What that is code for, and as my friend Peter Credlin, who again, I'm talking about him because my mates got a chance to see him a lot today, so they're getting lots of shout outs, lobby guys. Remember, of course, she remembers how government works. She's been there in the middle. Now, what you say is, well, our government's spoken to their government means, yeah, we kind of sent a note to the secretary, and hopefully the secretary passed it on to the boss, who passed it on to the boss's boss, who passed it on to the real boss. Hopefully Xi never finds out about it. So that's the Australian response. A member of our Defence Force is injured while trying to free up a naval vessel that was doing the right thing in the right waters, and China injured them. Yet we say nothing about it until multiple days after, and the Prime Minister turns around and says, yeah, we raised it. Yeah, but he didn't raise it, which is exactly why China wins every time. China sits back and says, we'll send you our tourists, we'll send you our students, you can sell stuff to us, we'll buy stuff from you, and there's a lot of people who get very rich. But China continues to provoke. And if you don't push back when people provoke, or at the very least call them out when you provoke, guess what they do? They provoke harder. They take a step forward. And then ultimately the bully gets what they want. And in this case, the person being bullied, being Australia, well, our leaders get what they want, which is no trouble with China. Because then they can hold on to their jobs, where, of course, they never call out China. 10 years later, China's taken 100 steps down, and we're still clapping them along as they do it. Oh, and buying 22,000 solar panels a day made by slave labour. Did that come up?